Morning Shift.
Anything could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the Morning Shift.
All right, everyone. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the Morning Shift. I'm AJ Walsh. I'm glad to be here with you. It is, Friday. It's Friday, September the 22nd, 2023. And glad to be here with you. And hopefully you're having a good day. Looking forward to the weekend. It's been an interesting week. Sorry that we didn't have a show yesterday. That's totally my doing. And I have to apologize for that, but we're here today and glad to be here with you. And it's going to be a great show. We will follow up on what we've been covering earlier before. We didn't have a show yesterday. Today's show is supposed to be what we would have had yesterday. But anyways, it is what it is. A lot of people jumping on. We are live at CKLU 96.7 FM. We're also streaming at cklu.ca. And you could listen to us just by going to the website and clicking on the Radio Player Canada app. You could also download that same Radio Player Canada app and take us with you and listen to us anywhere, anytime on your favorite device. And that's always good. I know a lot of times there's problems on the radio and you have to resort to listening to it through Bluetooth. So as would be today, I was driving in and I was listening to CKLU, and there was this little bit of a computer glitchy sound going on. And if you're experiencing that as you're listening on the radio, I apologize for that. There's nothing I could do about it. But I did notice it. Hopefully it's gone. Hopefully there's no background irritating, interfering sound. But if there is, I apologize. And I know it's probably difficult to listen to a show while that's going on. But anyways, it is what it is, and hopefully we will work on rectifying that issue. We're also streaming live at facebook.com/Sudbury News, youtube.com/Sudbury News. So make sure to like, share, subscribe, follow, and mainly comment, because I'll do my best to get your comments read, so that way people on the radio or listening to audio streaming on our website can hear what you have to say. But if not, for those wanting to, I can't read every comment, so I do my best to get them up on the screen. So people that are watching afterwards, you can go to facebook.com/Sudbury News, youtube.com/Sudbury News, and the shows should be on demand there, recorded, so you can go back and see what other people are saying about the issues that we're talking about. So many issues to talk about. They have the 6 speed trap cameras that we're going to be coming on board in Sudbury, going to make over $1 million per year in revenue from you speeding. So they're hoping that you're going to speed so they can make money off of you. So we have that coming up, and other things. Also, we'll follow up with the 1 million march, how that kind of went around the country, and maybe some takeaways from that as well. What can we learn from that? News, headlines, and a little bit of a deep dive there. We'll come back right after the weather with your comments, and then again we'll follow up on the 1 million march, and then that should be about our time, all the time that we have for the day. So looking forward to seeing you here on the show, commenting, and we'll be back right after this. And as usual, Sudbury weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. It's currently 11 degrees Celsius with fog patches. A lot of fog patches I noticed driving into work. This morning, today, mainly cloudy. Fog patches dissipating in the morning. High of 24. Humidex 28. UV index 4 or moderate. Tonight, few clouds. Low of 11. Saturday, increasing cloudiness early in the morning, wind becoming northeast 20 kilometers late in the afternoon. High of 23, humidex 26. So Saturday, going to be rather warm. UV index is 5 or moderate. A little bit of the long range. Again, 23, mainly cloudy on Saturday, but warm. And cloudy on Sunday, 20 degrees. And a mix of sun and cloud for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is forecasted. And pretty much 19 degrees all the way across. Look at your satellite here, taken 4:30 a.m. this morning. Looks rather clear, but you can see all the clouds coming in from the northwest. Interesting yesterday, as I'm looking at my app, I'm in Sudbury, totally overcast, not a spot of sun anywhere. And I look at my app and I thought, wasn't it supposed to be sunny for Thursday and Friday, from Wednesday's forecast? Anyways, said sunny on my app, totally sunny all the way through the night and maybe cloudy beginning in the morning. But I look up and there's not one spot of sun anywhere, totally overcast. So weather is interesting when it comes to forecasting weather and just weather in general. You could be looking at your app and it says sunny when it's totally cloudy. It's kind of like our mainstream news. But anyways, having that, we'll talk about that a little bit more when we come back right after this and your comments. Okay, and we're back. I just had to fix a little problem that we're facing here in the studio. I'll get off of this and see if that works. And it should. Good. Okay, joining us already this morning, Michael, good morning. Glad to have you with us. Good morning with a question mark. Okay, that's very ominous. Good morning? Maybe not. I hope you're having a good morning, though, Michael. I really do. Good morning, Sudbury, with a smiley sun emoji. That is Monique. Thanks for joining us. Mona, good morning. Hope you're doing fine this morning. Judy as well, good morning. And Belinda, good morning. Those who spend their time looking for faults in others usually spend no time to correct their own. That's very, very poignant and probably something that we can all use. And it's one thing to be looking at others, but it's the main thing to be looking at yourself for sure. That is the number one thing. So I often find myself, because of the show and what we talk about here and trying to talk about issues and criticizing those or critiquing those who are making decisions in a public way in order to at least have a little bit of accountability and understanding the issues that we're in and trying to make sure that people are held to account who are there to make decisions for us. Oftentimes I find myself when I'm being critical of somebody, I know right away. It's like, okay, well, I got to make sure I'm doing these things myself, including being transparent, as unbiased as possible, even though we all have some bias, and that's just a thing. It is a fact. And so anyways, so always look at yourself. And when you live in glass houses, don't throw stones. Good morning, wonderful people. That is Tracy and Maurice. Good morning with a heart emoji. Yeah, it's great to be back. I really missed the show yesterday. It's my own, speaking of looking at myself and being critical of myself, totally my fault yesterday. I have to take the blame for that. Good morning and happy Friday from Capriol. Awesome. That's Danica. Brian, good morning. Sudbury campers, exclamation point. Mark, good morning. Brian. Michael as well. Good morning. Someone seems agitated this morning. Oh, that's unfortunate. Shane, good. Happy Friday. Thanks for being with us. And Stephen, good morning, Stephen, by the way. Hope you're having a good morning. It would be fun if you kept an accuracy weather fact checker and match predictions. I wish I had that time for sure. And I've thought of that myself. Even in politics, a political checker, when a politician says something, and then when they get in office to call it check everything. And a news checker as well, when a news story comes out and they're making claims about something, that in the future, because oftentimes they don't come out and say, oh yeah, we reported false things before. They do that, but not all the time. And it's usually on the third page or, buried somewhere when they're apologizing, front page headline when they're making claims. But yes, you are so right. Yes, good morning, Stephen. So thanks for that. And Amber, good morning. Hope you're having a good morning. I want to say thanks a million for the help with, thank you. No problem. Anytime. Yeah, with my job that I have, for sure. We're able to work together, and I appreciate that. Like your weather app, there was no show. I said, okay. Like your weather app, there was no show. I said good morning too. Perfect. Yes, good morning, Michael. Hope you're having a good morning. And Vin, good morning. And Michelle, good morning, everyone. Oh my goodness, there's a lot on this morning, more than usual. It's going to be a great show. So I hope that that it lives up to what I would think would be the expectations of what we're going to be talking about today. Let's jump right into the news headlines of the day. And I knew that was going to indeed happen. Here we go. All right. So this is as of 7 a.m. this morning. So Sudbury, Ontario, that's where we are broadcasting from. And we're talking about, good morning, and Nick. Wow. Thanks for jumping on. You must be at the hotel there. Anyways, so great to have you on. And Steven says, nah, others are doing the political fact checking. Yeah, but something that would be unbiased would be really great. Almost like a AI algorithm, just doing it. Well, even AI algorithms can be biased. It depends who's programming them. But anyways, you know what I mean. A weather checker would be interesting. I wonder what the accuracy is for predictions. And you would think by now someone would have come up with that. And probably as we're talking about this, someone probably already has. We just got to look for it, I'm sure. That's low-hanging fruit there. All right. So 6 speed trap cameras will be installed in the city of Sudbury. I wonder if everyone's looking forward to that. The city of Greater Sudbury says it expects to have its 6 speed enforcement cameras up and running by the end of the year. Listening to CBC for a while as well, coming in to town this morning on my way to work, they were talking about this. And so the city's hoping to make over $1 million per year in revenue. And Rocca, who is in charge of all of this from the city, Mr. Rocca, was being asked, like, hey, am I going to get a ticket if I go 1 kilometer over the speed limit or 2 kilometers? And so he was very abstract and ambiguous in his comments to his friends and people asking him. He says, well, let's put it this way. You won't get a ticket if you're going 1 kilometer over. But you can't go 20. It's not even close to 20. So he's kind of just trying to give a range. So it's, who knows what the number is? Maybe it's 10 over. But he started his comments by saying it's in accordance with what other municipalities are doing. But and they're going to put them in 6 locations, and then they're going to be there for 4 months, and then they're going to switch where they are. So I don't know. I would think they should put up a warning at least for people. I would think that's at least the least they could do, is give someone at least that opportunity rather than just place them in unknown areas. I know other people probably think it should be the opposite, but I am okay with the idea if you're going to do it and you know it's there and you make that decision, then it's a little bit more open and transparent. If you're trying to trick people and just put them in any old place, and if you go over 10, sometimes you're just not paying attention for a second and you go, whoa, not everyone has cruise control, or cruise control is just annoying if it's on, off, on, off. So anyways, that's just my hope is that they'll post where these speed traps are going to be. Good morning, Mike. Maybe you could speak to that. And I know that you're on, so we'll have to have you on soon, you and Natalie. Any other counselors as well, talking about how the new council has been, your experience with it. So we're looking forward to that. Okay, so Michelle says, thank you to everyone that attended the 1 million march in Sudbury. For sure, and we'll be talking more about that coming up. Monique, it was amazing. So Mike says the $1 million will be used to pay for the cameras. Well, that's cool. At least it's going to what it's used for the services that manage the tickets and for costs of other traffic calming measures. Perfect. I just have to say publicly I'm not a fan, but like I said, as long as it's posted with a big sign, maybe lit up, saying you are now entering a zone that's going, it's a speed trap zone and you could be given a ticket. Basically, I'm hoping for that. So I hope that's in the works as well. A 1 million in a year revenue from traffic cameras. Unlikely. Well, that's what they're hoping for. And I know Mike's saying it'll go towards paying for it, but obviously you're doing it to make money too. So once the cameras are paid for, I'm sure there's a little bit left over for the city. Signs are up to 90 days before the cameras are installed. Wow. That's a lot of putting up signs and stuff to keep track of. But anyways, I guess that's good if they're 90 days ahead of time. Okay. Brian says already made $1 million on the red light cameras. I think by law, they're supposed to put out signs for the speed cameras. That's what they do in Calgary. Perfect. And signs will be up throughout the entire time the cameras are on the location, which I appreciate. And the list of cameras will be posted on the city's website. And I'll have to also make sure that we talk about it here on the show. So this is a number one complaint counselors receive. People are very frustrated and demanding action for sure. For sure. Yes. And it also goes along with the idea of the new surveillance state that we're entering into, right? Kind of like the Chinese model where there's cameras everywhere. So this is our first step. It makes sense, right? Because you're getting hounded by your constituents. And so as city, they got to do something about it. So let's install cameras and then more cameras and then more cameras and more cameras. Since we got cameras there, why don't we have cameras here and cameras there, cameras everywhere eventually, right? We know this. It's okay. It's the way the world's heading. Can't do anything about it, but let's just call a spade a spade. Okay. It's not a speed trap. For sure. It's not a speed trap. When I get up in the morning and I'm talking and I had 5 hours sleep, I apologize for not using the right verbiage for that. It means speed cameras. And if you're speeding, you get a ticket in a certain zone. So, alrighty. And Isaiah says, may as well set up a jaywalking sign. That's what I mean. So eventually we can have that too and put them everywhere. And we can be like China and give social credit scores. That is definitely the plan. And we will see it very soon here in our community. And Michael says we will need an app for speed trap locations. There we go. We should start a business, everyone here's on the show, and just create apps for all the wonderful ideas we're having. The MacBook Pro, the MacBook Pro didn't just come to be. It took little steps. We were slowly becoming like China. Yeah, for sure. My chair of my program at university said, well, of course. I said, well, don't you think this is scary? All these things going on in Canada. We're look at China. And she goes, well, of course, it's the model. She was aware of that as a university professor, that China is the model for us in Canada. So we can just look to them to see a lot of the things that we will see in our future, for sure. They attacked the people with their silence. That's Denise. Okay. No MP support. So Dave, hey, welcome back, my friend. Haven't seen you for a while. Thanks for being here. It certainly is a money generator for the city. Definitely is. I would say, or else why? Sure, it slows down drivers. That's good. But it also makes money for the city. And if you're claiming city drivers' speed as much as they do, it'll be a great revenue stream for the city. Denise says the convoy is now rolling. Oh, I wasn't aware of that. Get ready for a rough winter. That's Denise. So Stephen says you're liable for speeding anywhere, anytime, no signs except the posted limit. Okay. Belinda says it's uncanny they rolling out now when Canadians can barely scrape to get by. Oh, no, every angle you're getting it. So look at the carbon tax. How much are you paying for gas right now when you go to gas up? Wait till the winter when you go to pay your heating bills, and then wait for your mortgage to renew, and wait till that happens, and you'll really see where we're at. And so again, it's an organized, orchestrated, it gets you at every angle. So, it's almost like standing in your you got a bunch of people standing around you at every angle. You don't know who to fight or how to protect yourself. It's every angle coming at you, but all by design. Like we talked about in previous shows, right? It's a calculated, orchestrated movement to infiltrate your institutions at every level, because the end goal is the governance, the communistic style of governance for everyone in the world, right? And Canada's got to be part of that. So it is what it is. All little steps, all baby steps. It's the frog in the pot, so to speak. You ever hear that analogy? You're in the pot, you're a frog, and you just turn the water up ever so slightly. You turn the heat up ever so gently, and eventually it's boiling, and you're the frog. It's a great tactic if you want to overthrow or infiltrate or, kind of change things radically. The radical change that we want or calling for. Capitalism's so bad. We need to radically change everything. How about only punishing speeders who actually harm people? Interesting concept, for sure. Yep. That's the idea of creating laws and letting people kind of deal with consequences from those laws, and rather than forcing them to obey the laws, because you will never force everyone to obey. Force and free will are opposing things. Give people laws and allow them to live the laws, and if they do some harm by not obeying the laws, then they pay consequences. But the more and more we go to the China model, where you're forcing people to live a certain social construct and you punish them if they don't, again, that's more and more communist, right? You're forcing people rather than giving a fair playing field and allowing people to make decisions. And if they make the wrong decisions, they then have to pay the consequences. One might argue, well, by putting up the speed, whatever, the cameras and whatever, and they're making the choices, but you're taking away less and less and less choice from people. And it's more and more forced to obey laws. Not a good model in my estimation, or my opinion. Self-checkouts, exactly. So then self-checkouts shouldn't pay the tax or don't pay tax? That could be a possibility, right? If you go through self-checkout, then you don't pay the tax. Kind of rewarding you for doing things, I don't know, that they want us to do. I have no idea what that is, but it could be an idea. Organized wealth by the rich. It's the capitalist way. It's not, actually, Michael. And I know you've said this many times. I know you're not a fan of capitalism, but I would say capitalism is great. It's crony capitalism that and the corrupt capitalism, which involves governments. You can't have corrupt capitalism if you don't have governments aiding and abetting the corporations by making laws and regulations that allow for crony capitalism. But capitalism, free and of itself, is not that way. It's just create the playing field. If you work really hard, you make a business, you're going to make money. You know, another idea that anti-capitalists think is there's a finite amount of money There's only so much. It's like a Monopoly game. There's only so much money on the table, and the rich are taking the piece. It's like a pie. But the pie is infinite. The possibilities are infinite in capitalism, really, if it's not crony capitalism or corrupt capitalism, which we see now, which I am against as well. So when you say capitalism, if you mean corrupt capitalism or crony capitalism, totally against that, and that should be stopped. But we shouldn't have communism as a way to combat crony capitalism. A lot of C's there, by the way. Steven says, wanna save on tickets? Don't get them. Don't speed. Just obey. Obey everything, and you won't be punished. Okay, so Mike says most cameras are being installed in school zones and streets without sidewalks. Okay, cool. So there's 6 of them, and they're going to be kind of put out in different places at different times. They're not always going to stay in the same place. So that's interesting. And for now, and then I'm sure they'll eventually be permanent at some point. Denise says, yes, drags coming to an office or principal near you. And then Shane also says, victimless crime is an oxymoron, for sure. Okay, so great place for them during school hours. Okay, now we're having conversation with each other, which is fine. So now it's a perfect, oh my goodness, you guys are very talkative today, and I appreciate that, and that is cool. So let's continue. Miles, though, sure it's still on. If you think the carbon tax is going away in 2025 after the Conservatives get in, think again. Did they get rid of the GST years ago after promising when the Liberals brought it in too? Wasn't it? I thought it was Chrétien in his, I even had video of him up in his campaign, Chrétien, John Chrétien, saying when he was elected, he was going to axe the GST. Remember that? The Red Book, for those that remember it back when, he was going to get rid of the GST. And that was Liberals. He promised that he was going to get rid of it, but he did not, obviously. Speed limits are not new laws. No, they're not. But cameras to enforce them are, right? Usually you'd have a police every once in a while kind of around in an area, and they'd designate a certain amount of time with the radar gun. And if you were caught, you were caught. You never know where the police, that's even better because you never know where they're going to be. At least these speed traps, you have a big sign, you know. But I hope people will just wise up and just not speed during them. And then if they cost the city $1 million and not one person speeds, I think that would be a great way to get rid of them, because then we can say, why do we spend all this money on these cameras and we never made 1 red cent, but we had to pay for them $1 million for these cameras. So that's probably a really great way to combat the whole idea if you're not a fan. And I'm not a fan. I'm not angry about it. I'm not an angry opposition, and I'm a far right extremist just because I'm not a fan of traffic cameras for speeding. So let's just make that clear. All right? Just not a fan. And I don't think many people are. I think there's a lot of people who are not fans of these cameras. All right, that's a lot of time on cameras. And a lot of comments. And I know you guys, it's not a trap if there's a sign. Yes, I got it, Stephen. I've already read that already, for sure. All right, so here we go. One interesting thing I heard on CBC yesterday was Jamie West. He's the MP. He's NDP MP for Sudbury. And so that means for the province, right? So he was interviewed by Marcus Schwabe in the morning yesterday on CBC. And so I'm like, okay, I'm really interested in media. I'm really interested in politics. I'm interested in bias. I'm interested in transparency and being unbiased as much as you can. Like, so that's why I share my opinion. I'm like, this is what I think. I think it's not good. I think it's good. I think it's not good for this reason. I think it's good for this reason. I'm more of a conservative. I lean conservative politically as somebody who's public and on the air, and I divulge that. I actually think all media people should divulge what political leanings they have. That way, when you hear them talking, you know they're coming from that angle. if I was to be in politics myself, I would put a bill forward that media, you have a little icon on the bottom saying this is a liberal reporter, a liberal leaning reporter. There's some kind of system where the reporters would have to be accountable to their political biases when they're reporting on something. It just is what it is. So I'm interested in that stuff. So I'm listening to this interview with Marcus and Jamie West. And it's very warm, so you can tell right away there's a lot of laughing. Welcome back. We're going to have you again and all these things, which is fine. They're being very friendly. And right away, so what have you been up to during the summer? I know you're busy. And one thing, too, Parliament, they got a big summer. Like they I don't know, what do they get, 3 months off or something? That's in my opinion way too long for people that make a large salary as they do and have as much responsibility as they do to run a country or a province. Anyways, just my opinion. So you're coming back now after the summer break, and then he says, well, I only had 4 days off, really. Questionable. I'm sure you have a very flexible work schedule in what you do, and you're able to enjoy your time working from home a lot and whatever. Sure, you're busy. But anyways, that's fine. Oh, what have you been doing? There's stuff going on in the States. Yeah, well, I was down there. Well, what's the political climate down there was the question. Oh, it's scary. A lot of people don't trust politicians, and they're worried for their safety down there. There's a big movement, far right extremists are on the rise. I'm like hearing a lot of this far right extremist stuff a lot. And I'm like, okay, you can talk a talk, but there's, very little evidence of extremists. You might say far right, but that's fine. I could be considered far right in my politics, but it's not the same brush that's painted by mainstream media, far right, and I'm extremist and I hold all these unacceptable views and all these things just because I don't like cameras forcing or whatever, taking pictures of license plates when you're going by an area. I like post the sign, and if someone's going to drive that speed limit, that's fine. And if not, and there's a police officer present and he's there, he's going to give a ticket, that's fine. That doesn't make me an extremist because I have is that an unacceptable view that most Canadians probably share? Anyways, mainstream media painting these, there's a thing out there that right-wing ideas are dangerous. They're dangerous. I don't know how dangerous my idea of not forcing people with cameras in a society to do everything you want and be a communist country is dangerous. I'm not sure about that, but anyways, I digress. So anyways, he talks about these, far right-wing people you got to be very afraid of because they don't trust the government these days. They're very non-trusting of the government. It's getting really bad. So then the conversation switches to the Greenbelt thing with Doug Ford. Obviously, a different political party, and he's conservative. And right away, he was not doing. Obviously, there was wrong things going on there. Doug Ford apologized, which is interesting, right? 2 ministers resigned and said he did the wrong thing, and he apologized. And I'm thinking in my head, wow, that'd be great to see on a federal level, too. Someone admitting they're wrong and having people resign when they're accountable and they're found accountable for things not happening. But anyways, happens here in the province. And right away he goes, yeah, that Doug Ford, you can't trust the guy. I don't trust him one bit. And I was thinking, wow, that is so hypocritical. He's talking about these far right people in the United States not trusting the government and being very afraid because of that, because of these people, and turns right around and says, I don't trust the Premier of Ontario. He doesn't trust the government. He's in government himself. So much hypocrisy. It's just, if people just listen to what's being said with critical thinking, they'll hear what's being talked about. First of all, demonizing a whole group of people, and then showing that you're the same. There's no difference between how you view the government and everyone else views them. Like, we've always known throughout history that politicians were known for maybe exaggerating things or blatantly lying to us. Like, we all know that. That's what we're trying to hold them accountable on. We want to have a unbiased media who could be watchdogs to make sure that they don't do these things. And that's pretty much common sense. And I think that's where we would all appreciate that to take place, right? But just interesting hearing an NDP or Communist Party representative, then I just call it what it is. The NDP, the New Democrat Party, is Canada's Communist Party. And he was saying communist jargon as he was talking about, if you understand what communism is, you just hear that's how he's speaking. Just that everyone has to be making the same wage and there can't be rich and poor and all these things. And I'm like, wow, you live in a unicorn fantasy land in your head. It just doesn't happen. So anyways, just that was interesting in and of itself. So with all of this 1 million march going on, it's the same idea in the media. The media kind of demonizing one side while vindicating another rather than just giving the facts of both sides of what's happening. So government is more and more saying that parents are dangerous to their children. They're not to be trusted teaching their own children. The schools need to do that, which is a communist ideology that the children belong to the state. That's communism, part of communism. So, and we do see this. And Marcia Ian, I had an interview with her from CTV loaded up, but when I went to replay it, it just changed it to a different news story on their website. So I don't have that interview. I had so many things to point out. She's the minister of all things youth and, she corrected the person because he couldn't get the acronym right for the gay and queer community. Correct? She kind of brow beated him and said it the correct way and said, yes, it's not everyone can say it and it rolls off your tongue like I can do it, but it's fine. So she was saying that we need to keep our kids safe. That's why the government is so bent on having the school teach what gender ideology is, the theories that they have, because they're not facts, they're theories. That's what's taught in schools are theories, but they're not taught as theories. They're taught as facts. And so we have this pseudoscience being taught of gender ideology. It's not based in science. It's not biology, that's for darn sure. There's nothing, actually flies in the face of any biology, what's being taught. Actually gets told, rid of it. It's just gone. Biology doesn't exist anymore in that theory, in those theories, right? So anyways, she's totally saying the kids need to be kept safe from the parents. The parents are dangerous to their kids. Basically a communist idea, a Marxist idea that the kids belong to the state and the parents don't have rights over their own kids. That just isn't. When you know what communism is and you know what Marxism is, you know that there's the red flag. It's like tick. Yep, that's exactly what it is. And unfortunately, unions are, just riddled with the whole Marxist ideology because at its foundation, you're supposed to be putting people not exploited in the workplace and we're going to stand up for you. But eventually, you know what? Very easy to infiltrate that movement and make it a total Marxist operation, right? So unions, Marxist, and if you listen to what they're saying, now comments are no longer being able to be put up on the screen for some reason, just to let everyone know. I was just putting everyone's comments up, and now they're no longer able to get up on the screen, so not sure what's going on. Oh, here we go. Maybe it's just delayed. Perfect. Okay, so putting the comments actually gives my brother vertigo or something when he's watching it. He gets dizzy with the comments coming up and going away. I hope that doesn't happen to everyone else. And I understand we have a few communists on the show as well. They are communist, what's it called? Sympathizers and the ideology of communism in general. Now I'm freezing on Facebook as well. Who knows? We dropped a bunch of viewers all of a sudden, probably because we're freezing. So who knows what's going on? CKLU's all glitchy, is all get out. But let's just jump into the coverage from our mainstream media on the 1 million march, and we'll leave it at that. I'm done talking for now.
Thousands of people took to the streets today in cities right across the country, yelling and chanting at each other about the way schools teach sexuality and gender identity. A group calling itself 1 Million March for Children claimed they're standing together against what they call gender ideology in Canadian schools. But counter-protesters accuse them of hate. CTV's Vanessa Lee now on the controversy over curriculum.
There were confrontations in cities big and small right across the country as demonstrators spoke out against the teaching of sexual and gender diversity in the classroom.
I want my grandbabies to grow up well-rounded with their own thoughts without being coerced.
They were met by counter-protesters who called the rallies homophobic and transphobic, saying all children deserve to feel safe and welcome at school.
We have a huge crowd here today to hear and support. It makes me feel really welcome and really supported.
Police did their best to keep the two groups separated, though tensions boiled over in Vancouver, where one man was handcuffed and taken away. In Ottawa, police arrested 2 people for inciting hatred and another for causing a disturbance. The division disheartening for trans youth to see, many of whom covered their faces, they say fearing for their safety.
It throws us back to when we were in high school and we were like doubting our identities, and then no one would tell us about it, and we would be told that we're broken, we're different.
Amr Hanafi is the father of 2 young boys and is concerned about non-binary gender ideology being taught in elementary school.
What if they don't identify as male or female? Are they not able to just express who they are?
They are able to express who they are, but what I'm saying is that it shouldn't be a classroom curriculum put into as if it's a scientific thing. These are just ideas.
This is an issue where we've got to come together because kids' lives, and I've said it before, are very much at stake.
The mayor of Montreal, along with other mayors, called today's demonstrations shocking and unacceptable, saying the city will not tolerate discriminatory or hateful behavior. Omar.
All right, Vanessa, thank you.
Yeah, so kids' safety is at stake. I wonder what Marcia's position is on MAID for minors coming up, if she agrees with it or not, because she wants to keep them safe, right? What other better way to keep them safe than having somebody killing them? Here we go, another side of the protest. This was going on in Toronto as well, so we're speaking to some protesters, and we'll have some insight on this as well.
There's a very large Muslim contingent of people here. They've shown up in numbers. Counter-protesters, though, have labeled this protest as a racist and fascist gathering of ultra-conservatives. Have you seen anything here that would lead you to believe this is a group of fascists and racists today?
No, actually, all groups are here to protest what happening in the school nowadays. All kind of all religious people are here, like different religious, even some atheist people are here. They want their rights, parents' rights is the main issue here.
I flew in from Nova Scotia because I wanted to be here, and this is my sister. I came here with her, and I'm very passionate. I want to protect my grandchildren. My grandchildren are all school age now, and I'm afraid for them. And they don't have a voice. A lot of younger people, a lot of younger parents are afraid to say anything. And I've been told that. They're afraid. Well, why aren't you doing anything about this if you know about it? Well, because I'm afraid. What if they take my child away from me?
What's your message to politicians who seem to be hesitant to approach this issue?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for people here in Ontario, but I'm just kind of, I can't even believe this is a subject, you know, like, the politicians need to be here for the people.
Well, I think the education system is one-sided, and Canada is not about taking care of one group or one faith group or one ideology. Canada is supposed to be inclusive, and a Charter of Rights and Freedom of Religion include that. And we believe that our children, our community, the faith-based community throughout Canada, and particularly in Ontario, has been ignored and have been walked over by the new curriculum behind the scene. And that is not right. We are fighting for our rights. We are fighting for the Canadian value We are fighting for freedom of religion. We are fighting for Charter of Rights. And that is what Canada makes the best country in the world.
In schools right now, in Ontario schools, a teacher can withhold the transition of a child from a parent. What do you guys make of what's going on in schools right now?
Which is absolutely wrong, which is against democracy, which is against Canadian value, which is against the value of every Canadian. And we need to understand that this group or these people are not against other value system, but that value cannot walk over my value on us. And what they're doing in the school system behind parents' back, which is wrong, illegal, and it should be stopped.
I'm here to protect my son's identity. Like, my kid is 5 years old. He keeps changing his idea of a birthday every single 15 minutes. So I don't think he's capable of making a decision like that for himself. I'm his mom. He has a dad. We're the ones who's responsible for whatever decision he needs to make. Not the school, not the teachers, us, his parents.
I think that Kathleen Wynne is the one that kind of got this all started in terms of changing the sex curriculum. And I think we were all a little bit not paying attention. Parents need to find their voice. Politicians, they hear silence. They don't do anything.
We also wanted to make sure that we were able to cover the other side of the story, cover the counter-protest. When we tried to speak to them, however, they didn't really seem that interested in speaking to us. A few people did, however, in good faith, answer our questions, but most of them responded by swearing at us and encircling us with their signs and umbrellas. At what age should a child be able to transition their gender, you think?
Gender is a social construct. There shouldn't have been gender placed on a child.
So every child should just have no gender, in your opinion?
So are you saying that toddler clothing should be sexualized?
No, quite the opposite.
It is. So when you can change the systems that are already in place, then we can have this conversation.
We've heard from people who are organizing the counter-protest that the people on the other side are fascist and even racist. What do you guys make of that? Is that your guys' opinion, that the people on the other side here are indeed fascist and racist?
I don't know whether they're fascist or racist. I know that they're confused. And so we're here to educate and to help clear their narrowness from their mind.
I'd like to ask you about your sign. You don't own your kids. Could you explain that for us?
No.
So who does own the kids then?
I want to talk to you.
Behind me, you can see a sign that says, "You don't own your kids." I tried to ask what that means, and nobody told us. You don't own your kids. Well, if parents don't own their kids, who owns the kids? Listen. All for asking a question about somebody's sign at the protest. You don't own your kids. Counter-protesters organized this event, saying that the protesters on the other side of Queen's Park are racist and fascist. In reality, that protest was organized by an elderly Muslim woman, and when we've been asking people if that elderly Muslim woman is in fact a fascist and a racist, well, they don't have much of a response.
I take it you're not with our side, so you can go off right now. Bye.
Thank you very much, miss.
You guys are exactly the same as the fundamentalists in Iran that persecute people, that kill people, murder people. Exactly the same.
I did find it interesting, however, that on the counter-protest side, a group of Marxists with their Marxist banner were shouting, "Whose schools, our schools, whose kids, our kids."
Whose kids, our kids, whose kids, our kids, whose schools, our schools, whose schools, our schools.
It seems they may be mistaken because the last time I checked, the schools belong to the public and children belong to their parents, not Marxists and counter-protesters. We were also able to catch up with Tammy Peterson, the wife of Jordan Peterson. Back in 2015, Jordan Peterson was one of the first in this country to raise the alarm about compelled speech and the use of pronouns in schools. My, how things have changed since then. We went from concerns over pronouns in schools to what we're seeing now in schools. Here's what Tammy Peterson had to say about what's been going on in this country since 2015. Your husband was really the first, I think, to raise the alarm about the use of pronouns in school, and now we're here with a major protest happening across the country. What do you make of the progression of how everything has been unfolding?
Well, things have happened just like he said they would. He said that this would progress. Everyone said, "Oh, what are you worried about? Why aren't you letting people do whatever they want?" And he said, "No. When you tell people that they have no agency over what they say. If they're told to use words that they don't want to use, this is going to go places that we shouldn't go, that people have gone before in history. We know it's not a good idea to compel speech, and now they're compelling what we learn in the schools. You know, it's gotten more complicated, and now it's our children that are at risk. And I think in times of history, it always comes down to the children. And that's when we've gone too far. We have to see that the children are at risk, that they are going to be confused by all of this, and they're vulnerable. And so it's up to us, all these people here that are gathering today, to just do the next right thing and say no to all of this stuff that's going on at school.
One of the things that parents are really upset about, and we're starting to see provinces make legislation to stop it, is this practice of socially transitioning children behind the backs of parents, allowing a child to use a different name and a different pronoun and not telling the parents. We heard Doug Ford speak out about it, but he has yet to introduce legislation like Saskatchewan, Manitoba, New Brunswick. Is it political correctness that's holding politicians back in this province from following the wishes of parents? What do you make of the fact that politicians seem to be afraid to approach this issue?
Well, I think that politicians use polls. They use polls to decide what they're going to do. And who are the people that respond to the polls? Are they busy, hardworking people that have kids to take care of and jobs and households to run? Or are they people who are trying to put their time into activism and responding to that? And if that's what politicians are going to respond to, polling, then they're not going to be moving in the right direction of the citizens of the town.
And last question, I mean, there's a large counter-protest on the other side of Queen's Park right now. There was a Zoom video of union leaders labeling this protest that's happening across the country as ultra-conservative, as fascist. What do you make of the fact that so many unions are involved in trying to oppose this protest and labeling it a fascist gathering?
I watched that little video. It was very interesting that the people in the video, everything they talked about was we and them. There was never any individual accountability, and that makes it easy to point fingers if there's no one person that you're pointing a finger at. It makes you feel like you're not offending anybody because you're offending everybody. And I think that the unions, they've always been organizing. They've always been protesting. They're very good at this. This is what they've done. But now they've latched onto something that I think is going to bring down the school system. And you know, in the States, we've been talking and hoping that the Teachers Federation and the ability for the education department to decide who's going to be a teacher or not should be taken away from the universities. It's time that the teachers their power is taken away from them. And it's afraid, there's many good teachers, but the way that they're chosen now it's been politicized, and we have to let that go and start again.
Thank you so much, Tammy.
Thank you.
Counter-protesters decided to encircle the Million March for Kids group here in Toronto outside of Queen's Park. Queen's Park is separated in two, and the counter-protesters were originally stationed on the south lawn with the million-person anti-gender ideology protest on the north lawn. Eventually, the counter-protests came over onto this side and encircled the protest. You can see some of what that looked like now. Despite all of that, the event went off peacefully and without a hitch. It was smooth, it was clean, and it was clear. The message from these protesters was clear. Leave our kids alone. Ratio of the week time. The winner this week is QP Ontario, one of the many labor unions who organized the No Place for Hate counter-protest to the 1 Million March for Children. This ratio is absolutely brutal. 7,346 replies to only 4,441 likes at the time of this recording. The ultra-conservative right has organized nationwide events under the pretext of protecting children, while their true aim is to protest the teaching of 2S LGBTQIA+ content in schools. Yes, the ultra-conservative right led by a group of Muslim parents. Our mission is clear: to counter these protests and demonstrate unequivocally that there is no place for hate within our society. We shall stand together, resolute in our commitment to combat lies and misinformation while championing love, care, and respect. Oh, and as you can see over at the QP counter-protest, love, respect, and care were on full display. We are calling upon every QP Ontario member to take action. Mass participation in these protests is essential to our cause. Together, let's make our presence felt, countering false rhetoric, exposing lies, and proudly declaring that Canada has no tolerance for hate or discrimination. Aren't you supposed to represent your members, not be a mouthpiece for the state? One user writes. I'm a QP member and you do not speak for me. I'm also a liberal, as in liberalism, not a quote liberal party voter, as they are not truly liberals. Anyway, on this issue, I stand 100% behind the so-called ultra-conservative right. Parental rights over state rights. And another user writes, QP, the same union that sat on their hands and allowed me and anyone else who refused the jab to be fired. I lost all respect for unions then, so thankfully, there's no respect for you left to lose. Truly pathetic from these labor unions, but like many have noted, not that surprising. The majority of Canadians, based on what we've seen from the 1 Million March for Children, stand on the side of parental rights, not the side where people are waving pictures of Karl Marx and the hammer and sickle while shouting, whose children, our children, and whose schools, our schools.
Our kids, our kids, our schools, our schools.
Go figure, who could have possibly guessed? All right, everyone, that's going to do it for us this week on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Okay, so that's it for the show today. Obviously, we're out of time, trying to squeeze in as much as we possibly can. Everyone was on fire today with comments. Appreciate that. It's very polarizing, this whole idea of what our kids are being taught in schools. Seems to be a lot of people who are on the side of, protesting the protesters, who feel that a lot of things that are being taught to our kids are not particular of what parents would want. There's this idea of the state owns the kids, not parents. So what's up with that? Where is that? Do you believe that? Do you believe that as a parent, the state more owns your kid than, and you don't even own your kid anyways. You're speaking like that is just weird. Your kid owns your kid, but you're responsible for raising your child, not the state, right? You're supposed to get help by schools that you pay for. You are paying for the schools. It's public, right? So if the majority of people want their children to be taught from the majority of people's money going towards it, that's what should be taught, not from a small group of people's ideology, taught with taxpayers' money, with everybody's money, right? So how about that? And anyways, a lot of things being said here. Do your own homework. Look out for yourself. Like, I know it's very emotional for a lot of people. It just is what it is. As our society radically changes from the inside out, crumbles down, what's going to rise from the ashes? There's a lot of movements here going on. But anyways, where do you stand? Are you educated, no pun intended, on what's going on in our education system and the facts of what's happening in our society? And you might as well just keep looking into it and keep opening with an open mind, look at all aspects and listen to all people from all sides. And I think a conversation, as long as we're able to have it, which we were able to have today, and I appreciate everyone with their emotional responses from both sides. And that's the only way we're going to eventually be able to speak to one another, is speak to one another and listen to one another and have a conversation and maybe think, okay, you got a good point there. How about this? How about that? So that's the show for today. We'll see you same time, same place Monday, God willing, on CKLU 96.7 FM, Facebook and YouTube Live. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we'll see you back then. Stay tuned now for Earshot Daily on CKLU. Ciao.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.